I spent $20,000 to fly my family to my wedding, but my parents changed it to a Europe trip with my sister's family instead. They texted me, "You're not worth seeing in a wedding dress." I posted photos with the VIP guests on Facebook. An hour later. "Samantha, hey. How's the wedding prep going?" The call came the day before the wedding from Jessica, a friend from my college days. "Thanks, Jessica. Things are finally coming together. By the way, isn't your sister coming to the wedding?" I hesitated. "What? Of course, she is. The whole family's supposed to be there." "Really?" I could have sworn I saw a post this morning on Alexandra's Instagram. It looked like she was in Europe. Maybe I'm wrong? My heart started pounding. "Hold on. Let me check. Samantha, it might be nothing. Could be a mix-up or something. Thanks for telling me, Jessica." I hung up, and, with shaking hands, opened Alexandra's Instagram. The second I saw her latest post, my face was drained of blood. In the photo, Alexandra's children were smiling in front of a picturesque European street. The caption read, "Family trip to Europe. Having the best vacation ever with mom and dad." I stared at the screen in disbelief over and over. The comments were full of local friends saying things like, "What a lovely trip, and enjoy your break." With trembling fingers, I called my mother. When she finally picked up, her voice was clearly flustered. "Oh, Samantha, what's wrong?" "Mom, where are you right now?" "My wedding is the day after tomorrow." There was a long silence. Then she answered, barely above a whisper. "Well, Alexandra said she wanted to take the kids on a trip to Europe. She said it's now or never while they're still little. But we've had the date set for over a year. Didn't you say you booked flights and hotels?" "About that." Her voice dropped even lower. "The money you sent us, we used it to cover Alexandra's family trip. I just wanted to give the kids some beautiful memories." I was speechless. The $20,000 I had saved from my own pocket to invite my family to my wedding had been used instead for their European vacation. "Mom, what about my wedding?" "I'm sorry, Samantha. But you have so many friends, don't you? You'll be fine without us. Honestly, the kids." I hung up. My fiancé, Michael, looked at me with concern. "Samantha? Are you okay?" I shook my head, tears silently streaming down my face. After a whole year of planning, not a single member of my family was coming to the wedding. Worse, they were enjoying a European vacation funded by me. The $20,000 had been meant to cover flights and hotel accommodations for my parents and my sister's entire family from California to my university on the East Coast. It wasn't a small amount by any means, but having my family there for what was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime wedding held a value that money simply couldn't measure. To have that goodwill thrown aside left me deeply, utterly disappointed. The morning of the wedding, I stood in front of the mirror in my white dress. It was perfect. The silk hugged my body beautifully, and the lace sparkled in the soft light. My hair and makeup turned out exactly as I had envisioned. The hairstylist swept my hair into an elegant updo, and the makeup artist gave me a radiant, bridal glow that felt both graceful and celebratory. And yet, as I looked at my reflection, a deep loneliness sat heavy in my chest. This was supposed to be the most special day of my life. But not a single person from my own family was there to celebrate it with me. In the car on the way to the chapel, Michael's parents, George and Kathy, spoke softly. "Samantha, we'd be honored to represent your side of the family today. You're like our own daughter." Kathy's warm voice and kind eyes wrapped around my aching heart. Her words brought tears to my eyes before I even realized it. They weren't my blood relatives. But maybe that was what real family looks like. At the chapel, I glanced at the family seating area. White roses and Casablanca lilies adorned the seats. A gold plaque read family, but only Michael's parents, George and Kathy, sat there. The seats next to them, meant for my mother and sister, were painfully empty. Those empty chairs told every guest the truth: my own family hadn't shown up. Shame and sadness surged inside me. But then I looked at those empty seats and made a quiet vow. I would never expect anything from them again. If they couldn't be there for the most important day of my life, they didn't deserve another ounce of my hope or pain. After the ceremony, I received no messages from my family. There were no words of congratulations, no apologies for missing the ceremony. It was as if my wedding had never happened. Just complete, deafening silence. Messages of congratulations kept pouring in from friends, one after another. And yet, from my own family, nothing. That stark contrast made it painfully clear just how broken our relationship had become. Photos from Alexandra's European vacation continue to appear on her social media. Smiling in front of the Eiffel Tower in Paris, posing at the Colosseum in Rome, dining in upscale restaurants, the images were vibrant, joyful, and all posted during the same week as my wedding. Yet not once did she mention my wedding. It became painfully clear for her. A vacation in Europe mattered more than her sister's marriage. Michael noticed I was feeling down and gently asked about it. I told him, "I'm fine now. If anything, I feel relieved to finally see who they really are." 2 weeks after the wedding, I received a thick envelope from a law office. The sender was the legal firm handling my late grandmother Dorothy's estate. She had passed away a year ago, so I hadn't expected any further proceedings. Inside was a document titled Final Notice Regarding Estate Distribution. An attached letter read, "In accordance with the final wishes of the late Dorothy, we are notifying you of a significant change in the distribution of her estate." I sat down on the couch, my heart pounding, and began to read. Grandma Dorothy was a retired elementary school teacher who always believed that education could change lives. When I was applying to college, she had helped me fill out scholarship forms and even practiced interviews with me. According to the document, she had left behind an estate worth $800,000, but that wasn't the biggest surprise. Enclosed was a handwritten letter from my grandmother. To my dearest Samantha. Originally, I had planned to divide this inheritance equally among you, your mother, and Alexandra. But after what happened last Christmas, I changed my mind. Do you remember when you talked about wanting to support children's education through a nonprofit, and your mother said, "Stop with the holier-than-thou act and focus on your real family"? That was the moment I knew. You're the only one who would truly use this money for good. So I've decided to leave the entire inheritance to you alone. As I read those words, the memory of that moment returned vividly. I had shared my dream of helping underprivileged children get access to education, and my mother had scoffed. "You can't even take care of your own family, and you're worried about strangers?" What shocked me even more was realizing they had already counted on receiving that inheritance. The day after Alexandra returned from her trip, my mother called me. It was perfectly timed. "Samantha, I wanted to talk to you about Grandma's estate." There was no trace of apology for missing the wedding. Her voice was full of anticipation. "Alexandra's thinking about remodeling our house into a two-family home. If we lived together, I could help with the kids, and she could open a salon in the house. You know she has her cosmetology license, right? We thought it would be a great idea to use some of Grandma's money for the renovation. Would you be willing to help out a bit?" As she spoke, all I could think of was how they had spent the $20,000 I gave them for my wedding trip on their vacation instead. And now, they were coming for the inheritance too. "Mom, did you read Grandma's will?" "What? No. Not yet. The lawyer hasn't shown it to us. They keep saying it's complicated, or that the documents aren't ready. But I remember your grandmother saying, 'There's something I want to leave to everyone before she moved to the retirement home.' And she had that big house and property, remember? I even heard from someone that Grandma had more money than we thought. Anyway, we're supposed to split it 3 ways, right? Even if you keep most of it, surely you can share a little." I took a deep breath. "Mom, I received the will. Grandma left everything to me. It's in writing." There was a long pause. Then her voice exploded. "That's impossible. I'm her daughter. And Alexandra is her grandchild." She also left a letter explaining why. She said she changed her mind after seeing your reaction when I talked about starting a nonprofit organization for education. "So your fake little charity act means your whole family has to be cut out." And just like that, I knew Grandma was right. Even then, my mother saw helping children as fake and selfish. After hanging up, I thought of something my grandmother once told me. She was gently holding my hand and said, "Real education isn't just about gaining knowledge. It's about growing a heart that wants to help others. When you can use what you've learned to lift someone else, that's when your learning is truly complete." At the time, I didn't fully grasp the depth of my grandmother's words, but now, their true meaning has become unmistakably clear. I made my decision. I would use her inheritance to establish a nonprofit organization called Learning for Tomorrow. I wanted to provide scholarships to children at risk of losing their educational opportunities due to financial hardship so they could keep pursuing their dreams without giving up. I'm certain that using the inheritance my grandmother left me not for personal comfort, but to help shape a better future for these children, is the truest way to honor her wishes. With her spirit guiding me, I stepped into a new purpose. As I began the process of founding the organization, Michael stood by me without hesitation. "Samantha, your grandmother was an incredible woman, and she knew you'd make the right choice." "Michael, it hurt when my family didn't come to our wedding. But maybe that was the wake-up call I needed. Family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up when it matters." As I continued preparing for the NPO's launch, I found many supporters. Michael's colleagues offered their help, and several of my client companies pledged funding. But the calls from my mother didn't stop. Every day, she had something new to say. "Samantha, think about this. It's $800,000. If you give it all away, what about your future?" "Mom, I have a stable income, and I have Michael. What matters most is using this money the way Grandma wanted. Even if your grandmother wanted that, she's gone now. You need to think about the living members of your family. My mother's voice rang in my ears, but my mind drifted to the final lines of Grandma's letter. Samantha, sometimes even with family, it's necessary to keep your distance. It's just as important to protect yourself from those who might take advantage of your kindness. I took a steady breath and responded. Mom, my decision is final. I'm going to use Grandma's inheritance exactly as she intended. If you go through with this, you're cutting yourself off from this family. Then so be it. When you chose a vacation over my wedding, you have already made your choice. After I hung up, I went straight to the law office and officially finalized the paperwork to launch my NPO. That evening, as Michael and I quietly shared dinner together, I felt peace for the first time in weeks. Thank you, Grandma, I whispered silently. Your legacy will help light the future for so many children. Signing the founding documents for Learning for Tomorrow, I felt like I had opened the door to a new life. I would no longer be swayed by my family's expectations or demands. From now on, I will live according to my own values. A month after Learning for Tomorrow was established, my peaceful days were shattered. It happened on an ordinary morning as I was sipping coffee and scrolling through social media. On Facebook, a post from my mother immediately caught my eye. She had uploaded a photo from my college graduation and written a long caption beneath it. To all my friends, I want to share something painful. My daughter Samantha has taken my late mother's $800,000 inheritance all for herself. Money that should have been shared among family is now being poured into her selfish charity. I take full responsibility for raising a daughter who values strangers over her own blood. We now have to give up on the hope of renovating our home or saving for our grandchildren's education. Please understand the heartbreak of a mother whose child has forgotten her duty to family. I froze, staring at the screen. The post already had over 30 likes and dozens of comments. Most of them were sympathetic toward my mother. What a terrible daughter. Family should come first. She may be educated, but clearly lacks heart. You poor thing. I hope things get better. But what stung the most was a comment from Alexandra. She had shared the post with her own note. My sister has always only cared about herself. She invited us to her wedding without considering our situation, then got angry when we couldn't come. Now she's hoarding Grandma's inheritance and ignoring the needs of her nieces and nephews. What happened to family values? My hands trembled. Everything about my wedding had been twisted. There was no mention of the $20,000 I had spent to bring them to the ceremony, money they had instead used for a European vacation. What shocked me even more was seeing a comment from my Uncle Frank. I'm truly disappointed in Samantha. She was always bright, but is clearly lacking love for her family. Dorothy must be heartbroken even in the afterlife. I took deep breaths and told Michael everything. He listened quietly, then said, Samantha, this is completely false. I was there. I know exactly what happened, but people in our community will only see their posts. They don't know my side of the story. That afternoon, I received a call from one of my client companies. Hi, Samantha. We need to talk about something. The representative sounded uneasy. We've seen some posts going around on social media about your family's inheritance. Do you have any comments? My heart raced. I'm sorry, can you tell me what exactly you've seen? It's a viral post claiming you kept the family's inheritance for yourself. As a partner company, we need to consider how this affects our image. I realized just how serious the situation had become. If I didn't act, my reputation and work would suffer. That night, I made a decision. I would reveal the truth. Thankfully, I'd always been meticulous. I had carefully stored every important document and record. First, I scanned and saved digital copies of Grandma's will and her letter. Next, I gathered email threads about wedding planning, receipts for flight and hotel bookings, and screenshots of Alexandra's vacation posts. The most valuable piece of evidence, however, was an audio file recorded by my grandmother. In her later years, Grandma had taken to recording important conversations, worried her memory might fade. One of those recordings captured her explanation for changing the will. I leave my entire estate to my granddaughter Samantha because she alone understands the true value of education and is willing to act on behalf of those in need. My daughter mocks Samantha's intentions, calling them phony charity work. If helping others makes me a hypocrite, then I'm proud to be one. The next morning, I wrote a detailed post on my own Facebook page. Regarding the statements circulating from my family, I'd like to share the actual facts. I laid out the timeline clearly. I included proof that I had spent $20,000 inviting my family to my wedding and that they had instead chosen to use that money for a vacation. I shared images of the will, the letter, and excerpts from the audio file. I also introduced Learning for Tomorrow and posted thank you notes from the children we'd already been able to support. At the end of the post, I wrote, Love for family and healthy boundaries are not mutually exclusive. Even when tied by blood, I choose not to stay in relationships that only seek to exploit me. My grandmother's inheritance will be used exactly as she intended to support the future of children in need. This is my final decision. Within minutes, the responses started pouring in. The first comment came from the mother of one of the high school students we'd helped through the nonprofit. Thanks to you, Samantha, my son didn't have to give up on his dream of going to college. We're truly grateful. I know that sometimes, even family won't understand. But what you're doing is giving hope to so many others. Messages like this began to pour in from Michael's university colleagues, from my client contacts. We're glad the truth came out. We trust your integrity in everything you've built. We've seen the reports from your NPO. The results are inspiring. You have our full support. Even people from the community who had seen my mother's post began commenting. Many had already suspected something wasn't right. I remember how proud Dorothy was of Samantha. Knowing what we know now, the will makes perfect sense. I had no idea about the wedding. I was told the family just couldn't make it. This changes everything. As my post continued to spread, the narrative flipped. Criticism toward my mother and sister began to grow. What kind of mother twists the truth and paints her daughter as the villain? They used Samantha's wedding money for a vacation, and now they want the inheritance too? Shameful. That evening, my phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice trembled. Samantha, please take the post down. I can't handle the way people are looking at me. You're the one who posted first. All I did was tell the truth. I didn't think it would turn into all this. Did you not think when you ruined my wedding and when you demanded the inheritance? After a long silence, she spoke again softly. If I stop contacting you, will you delete it? I answered quietly. Honestly, Mom, that sounds like the best thing for both of us. I ended the call. Then I sat beside Michael on the couch and looked out the window where the sky was streaked with sunset. I think this is the moment my new life truly begins. You did the right thing, Samantha. The truth always comes out. That night, I received thank you messages from children we were supporting through the NPO. They had seen my post and reached out to share how much the help meant to them. I looked at my grandmother's photo on the bookshelf and whispered, Grandma, am I doing the right thing? And in my heart, I could almost hear her gentle voice. You've done well, Samantha. Now, go live your life freely and fully. From that night on, a new chapter began. The online chaos slowly faded, and learning for tomorrow found its footing. Michael and I grew even closer as we built our life together. 6 months after our wedding, we decided to move into a new home. We found a small but charming house in a quiet neighborhood, just 20 minutes from Michael's university. In the garden stood an old tree, and the neighbors told us it would bloom beautifully in spring. Let's start our next chapter here, Michael said, as we walked through the front door. For the first time, I felt what it truly meant to build a family. During our move, Michael's parents, George and Kathy, came to help. Both were retired teachers, he in math, she in English, and still active in book clubs and tutoring programs. They were people who radiated love for education. Samantha, this house suits you both perfectly, Kathy said, gazing out the kitchen window into the garden. I can already picture your kids playing under that tree someday. At the time, I had no idea how soon her words would come true. 2 months later, I began noticing changes. The smell of morning coffee made me nauseous. Foods I once loved no longer appealed to me. At first, I blamed the stress of adjusting to a new home. Then I realized my period was late. I took a pregnancy test, positive. As I sat in the bathroom holding the test, waves of emotions swept through me: joy, anxiety, awe. When I told Michael the news, his face first showed surprise, then he gently pulled me into his arms and held me close. Samantha, we're going to have a baby. I'm scared, but so happy, I said. I'm just glad our child will grow up surrounded by real love. From now on, I'll walk through life alongside my new family. I rested a hand over my stomach and thought, I will teach this child the courage to stand up for what's right and the wisdom to never harm others. Meanwhile, I filed for a restraining order against my parents and sister to protect my child and my husband. A restraining order against your own family? My mother had protested, but it was already too late. Without the inheritance, my parents had been forced to drain their savings and fell into debt. Alexandra got divorced and moved back in with my mother, relying on her help to raise her children. Worse, the backlash from social media had made it nearly impossible for Alexandra to find work, her past behavior now visible to anyone who searched. Their dream of a luxurious 2-family home had crumbled. All that remained was debt and social isolation. Though I had severed ties with my blood relatives, I gained something far more valuable: genuine connections with people who truly cared. Grandma, I finally found what family really means. And now, I'm about to welcome a new life into that family. As the sunset casts a warm glow over the garden, I sit wrapped in quiet happiness, reflecting on the new chapter of motherhood that is about to begin.